You ever notice how the word billionaire makes people twitch? It's not just a number. It's a trigger, a threat, a fantasy. For some, it's the promise of freedom. For others, it's a symbol of greed. But when God says it, when the voice you can't escape whispers you were chosen for it, it hits different, doesn't it? Because now you can't shrug it off as delusion. You can't blame it on ego. It's not a dream anymore, it's a summons. They told you the game was fair. That if you worked hard, kept your head down, played nice, you'd win. That the system was built to reward effort. But you're not stupid. You watched. You see, the ones who climb aren't always the most gifted. They're the most relentless, the most disobedient, the ones who stopped asking for permission and started creating their own doors when none were offered. That's the part they don't teach you. Not in school, not in church, not in those polite conversations where everyone's pretending they're not secretly suffocating. You think you're chosen, good, but chosen doesn't mean lucky. It means marked, set apart. It means you'll walk roads so lonely they echo. It means you'll be laughed at, doubted, betrayed, because when you start breaking out of the mold, the people still stuck in it panic. They'll try to clip your wings, not because they hate you, but because your flight reminds them they never tried. That's what being chosen feels like. Not applause, not praise, resistance, at first from them, eventually from you. Because here's the dirty little secret: your worst enemy will sound like your own voice. The one that whispers at 2 a.m. that you're delusional, that maybe you misheard the call, that maybe God made a mistake when he picked you. That voice is clever. It speaks in logic, in safety. It says things like, be realistic, take the easy route. You've done enough, but you haven't, not yet. You feel that itch that never leaves, that knowing, that heat, that ache in your gut when you see someone living the life you know you're destined for. Not envy, recognition. You see yourself in it, don't you? That's not coincidence. That's confirmation. But to step into it, to step into that billionaire energy, you've got to do something most people never will. You've got to bury the version of you that was built to survive. The obedient version. The agreeable one. The one who made everyone else comfortable while dying slowly on the inside. That part of you has to go, not gently, not with a hug and a thank you. With fire. With violence. With the kind of honesty that shatters illusions. Because if you're chosen, you don't get to play small. You don't get to dim your light just to keep others warm. You don't get to ignore the call just because it's inconvenient. You were picked for a reason. Not because you're special, but because you're dangerous to the narrative. You don't think like them. You don't dream like them. You see cracks in the system, and instead of patching them up, you think, why not tear the whole thing down? That's billionaire thinking. Not the money, the mindset. It's not about stacking cash for clout. It's about freedom, power, leverage, the ability to move mountains without asking anyone's permission. To wake up and say, I want to build that, and then build it without waiting for some gatekeeper to nod. But that kind of power, it demands sacrifice. Comfort is the first to go. Then come the friends who only love the insecure version of you. Then the habits, the distractions, the addictions you used to cope with a life that felt too small. You'll outgrow everything. Your town, your beliefs, your excuses. And it'll hurt. Growth always hurts. It stretches you. Forces you to look in the mirror and admit that the only thing standing between you and that billionaire, not luck, not talent, discipline, the willingness to show up when it's boring, when it's hard, when nobody's watching, when it feels like nothing is working. That's the test. That's what separates the ones who talk from the ones who own. And people will talk. Oh, they'll talk. Who do you think you are? Money's not everything. You've changed. Of course you've changed. That's the point. What they call greed, you call vision. What they call arrogance, you call certainty. Let them misunderstand you. Let them judge. Let them stay broke mentally emotionally, financially. You didn't come here to fit in. You came here to break the pattern, to flip the script, to make it impossible for the next generation to think small ever again. They tell you to be humble, stay grounded, keep your feet on the floor and your dreams in check. Because God forbid you actually believe you're meant for more. Because confidence when it's poor is called ambition. But when it's rich, they call it arrogance. They'll let you dream as long as your dream doesn't challenge their insecurity. As long as your success stays theoretical, cute, harmless. But the second you start moving like it's real, the second you stop apologizing for seeing what they can't, that's when the knives come out. You want to know the truth about being chosen. It isolates you. It makes people uncomfortable. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because your certainty highlights their doubt. Your drive makes them feel lazy. Your belief feels like a threat. And it is, not to their life, but to the lies they tell themselves. They've built entire identities around realism, around playing it safe. You walk into the room like a walking contradiction, and suddenly they either have to rise or resent you. And most choose resentment. It's easier. But being chosen doesn't come with instructions. No manual, no applause. Just a quiet voice inside you that refuses to shut up. It keeps whispering even when the world's screaming over it. It says, keep going. It says, don't fold. It says, there's something waiting for you they can't see yet. And some nights that voice is the only thing keeping you from burning the whole damn thing down. Because let's be honest, it's exhausting. Carrying a vision no one else understands. Talking about a future that sounds insane to people still obsessed with fitting into the past. You start to wonder if you're crazy. If maybe the world is right and you really are asking for too much, wanting too much, reaching too far. But then something happens. A moment, a sign, a flicker, something small but undeniable. And it reminds you didn't choose the dream. It chose you. That dream was planted in you because you're the only one stubborn enough to fight for it. Everyone else would have settled by now. Everyone else would have folded under the weight of judgment, loneliness, fear. But not you. You keep showing up. Even with the bruises. Even with the doubts. Even with no audience, no validation, no backup plan. That's what makes you dangerous, not your talent. Your refusal to quit. And yet, people will still mock you, still call it ego, still reduce your vision to a punchline. Because small minds hate big mirrors. Your evolution reminds them they've been sleepwalking. That they had the same chances, the same 24 hours, the same God. But they buried their calling under distractions, under comfort, under fear. And now they have to watch you climb and convince themselves you got lucky, that you cheated, that it must have been handed to you. Because if they admit you earned it, they'd have to confront why they didn't. But let them talk. Let them stay pressed. You're not here to win their approval. You're here to walk in alignment with the truth that's been chasing you since you were a kid. That feeling you couldn't name. That restlessness you tried to medicate. That voice you tried to mute. You were never meant to fit in. That's why it always felt wrong. That's why you always felt like a misfit in the crowd. Because you weren't meant to be part of the crowd. You were meant to lead it. People think being chosen means you're special. No, it means you're responsible. You don't get to sit this one out. You don't get to blend in. You carry the assignment. And it's not just about the money. The money's the byproduct, the symptom, the proof that you listened. The real work is in building the mindset, in protecting the vision, in staying unshakable when the storm hits. Because it will. It always does. They'll test you. Life will test you. God will test you. Not to break you, but to prove you. Because the chosen ones aren't chosen for comfort. They're chosen for impact, for legacy, for disruption. And if that makes people uncomfortable, good. Let them squirm. Let them gossip, let them doubt. Every time they say your dream is too big, smile. That just means you're finally making noise in the places they swore you'd never reach. You ever notice how they all pretend not to see you when you're building? Like you could be screaming into the void, bleeding for your dream. And they'll scroll past like you're invisible. But the moment you win, oh, now they remember. Now they always believed in you. Now they want to stand next to you like they had something to do with it. Funny, isn't it? How silence turns into applause once you're successful enough to make them uncomfortable. But that middle part, the grind, the confusion, the nights where the only light was your own fire, that's when it matters most. And that's exactly when they vanish. It's almost a test. Like life is daring you, will you keep going when no one claps? That's the part most people fail. Not the work, not the ambition. The loneliness, the uncertainty, the humiliation of showing up day after day and being met with nothing. No recognition, no praise. Just you and the echo of your own session. But if you really heard your name called, if you really believe you were chosen, you keep going anyway. Because the reward isn't the applause. The reward is becoming the kind of person who doesn't need it. You want to know what separates the chosen from the forgotten? It's not talent. It's not luck. It's the refusal to stop moving. The willingness to look ridiculous, to be underestimated, to keep pushing when it feels like nobody's watching because someone is. God doesn't call you and then Ben babysit you. He watches, silently, waiting to see what you'll do when the lights go off, when the cheering dies down, when the path disappears and all you've got left is a gut feeling and an unpaid phone bill. You either fold or you become dangerous, and most fold, quietly, comfortably. They say things like maybe it wasn't meant to be so they don't have to admit they gave up. But you're still here, still fighting, still hearing the voice no one else can hear. And that's what makes you unstoppable. Not because you're stronger, because you're obsessed, because your vision became louder than your fear, because your silence trained you to listen in ways most people never will. You picked up signals in the static, saw patterns in the chaos. Where they saw walls, you saw doors. Where they saw endings, you saw angles. And maybe they laughed. Maybe they called you crazy. But crazy is just what they call you before they understand you. Eventually they'll try to rewrite your story. Pretend they always knew. But you'll remember. You'll remember the posts that got 0 likes, the messages left on read, the empty seats at the table. And it won't make you bitter. It'll make you sharp, focused, unbothered. Because you learned how to survive in the shadows. You learned how to build when nobody believed. So now that you've got momentum, you're terrifying. You've got discipline and fire, silence and proof. They can't stop you because you already walked through hell and you didn't come out asking for a trophy, you came out with clarity. And don't be fooled, they'll come back. The same ones who ignored you will resurface, acting like they never left. They'll smile wider, clap louder, but they didn't change. You did. You stopped performing for their approval. You stopped begging for validation from people who couldn't even comprehend your vision. You stopped shrinking to make them feel better. And now that you've outgrown the frame they tried to stuff you in, they don't know what to do with you. So they either join you or they try to sabotage you, but either way you win, because you stayed, you endured. You didn't need a spotlight, you became one. And maybe the most twisted part, you'll still give. You'll still serve. Not because they deserve it, but because the real chosen ones don't hoard the light. They spread it. They infect the room with possibility. You're not just winning for you anymore. You're creating proof for someone else who's sitting in the dark, wondering if their voice is real. Wondering if they should keep going. You become the signal, the sign. The proof that silence doesn't mean absence. That being overlooked doesn't mean being uncalled. That the ones who ignore you now might just be the ones forced to watch you rise without them. They love telling you to trust the process. Cute phrase, right? Wrapped in optimism. Taste like motivational candy. Trust the process sounds great when you're on stage, but what about when it doesn't? What about when the process feels like punishment? What about when the process is silence, isolation, betrayal, doors slammed in your face, and everything you thought was meant for you starts slipping through your sucker? No one tells you how ugly the process gets. How it starts ripping things off you, friends, habits, illusions, even your own identity. You start to realize the version of you that wanted the dream isn't the same version that's going to receive it. And that transformation, it's violent, it's disorienting. It doesn't feel like growth, it feels like death. Ego death, comfort death. You watch parts of yourself decay and no one claps. No one posts about that. You're in a dark room, bleeding character, and the only thing you've got is that whisper that said you were chosen. And it's not even loud anymore. It's quiet, almost mocking. See, people think elevation is glamorous. What they don't understand is that real elevation comes with detachment, with grief. You don't just rise, you lose things, people, places, old versions of safety. And it's not because you're too good for them. It's because the next level is too heavy for what you're carrying. You want to ascend, but you're dragging corpses, expectations that don't fit anymore. Relationships built on the version of you that played small to make everyone else feel big. Patterns that numb you. Lies you told yourself to survive. You can't bring that baggage to the top. So the process burns it off. And here's where it gets interesting. Once the fire starts, most people run. They confuse discomfort for misalignment. They think resistance means turn back. But what if the resistance is the proof you're getting close? What if the chaos is divine surgery, not punishment? What if being broken wasn't a setback, but a blueprint? Because some of you needed the storm. You wouldn't have moved without it. You'd still be stuck in that same dead job, around those same dead minds, clinging to a future that was never meant to feed you. So life got loud, started shaking the ground. Not to destroy you, to wake you. You start realizing that the process isn't there to protect your comfort, it's there to reveal your capacity. The more pressure, the more potential. That's why it gets harder when you're close. Because now the test isn't can you dream, it's can you endure? Can you still walk when the road disappears? Can you still speak life over yourself when the world is speaking death? Can you still move like you're chosen when nothing around you reflects it? That's where faith stops being a concept and becomes a weapon. Not churchy faith, not cute quotes. I'm talking about the kind of belief that survives silence, that stubborn, delusional, irrational kind of fire that keeps you building when logic says quit. When everyone around you starts settling, you keep grinding. Not for applause, not for clout, but because something inside you knows this pain is birthing something. This chaos isn't random. This process is fingerprints, divine fingerprints. You're not cursed. You're being crafted, but they won't understand. They'll call you obsessed, say you're wasting your time, ask why you keep trying, and you'll smile, not because it doesn't hurt, but because you've seen too much now. You've been through too much to pretend you're normal. That dream rewired DNA. You can't unsee it. You can't go back to mediocre. You've already tasted what alignment feels like, and anything less tastes like poison now. So you keep walking, keep trusting. Not the process, but the purpose behind the process. Because you know now the pain had a purpose. The loss had a lesson. And the fire, oh, the fire made you. It didn't burn you down. It burned off everything that wasn't you. Everything weak, everything fake, everything scared. Until what was left was pure. Focus. Unshakable. Until what was left wasn't just a dreamer, but a weapon. A force. A problem for everything that tried to keep you small. You ever notice how people worship comfort like it's some kind of god? Like if you're not calm, if you're not safe, if you're not smiling all the time, something must be wrong. As if pain doesn't sharpen you. As if discomfort isn't the birthplace of evolution. The minute you start shaking the system, your mindset, your routine, people panic. Not because you're failing, but because they can feel you're changing. And change terrifies them, especially when it's happening to you and not them. See, the moment you outgrow who they think you are, you become a threat, not because you're violent, not because you're arrogant, but because you remind them of their own potential and their decision to ignore it. You force them to look at the mirror they've been avoiding. You show up with your wounds, your ambition, your relentless obsession, and it makes them uncomfortable. Because deep down they know they had that same spark once before they buried it under comfort and conformity. And here's the part no one tells you. To step into your calling, you have to outgrow your old life. Not just the people, the habits, the identity, the very way you think. Because the version of you that survives hell cannot be the same one that settles in heaven. You don't bring soft skin into war, you harden, you bleed, you lose your innocence. And that's what makes you qualified to lead, because you've been through something. So when you start becoming, don't expect a parade. Expect silence. Expect distance. Even betrayal. Because most people can only handle you when you stay predictable. The moment you get serious, focused, dangerous with your time, they don't know what to do with you. You stop laughing at the same jokes. You stop showing up to the same circles. You start protecting your energy like it's sacred because you realize it is. And that shift, that triggers the insecure. Because you're moving without needing their approval. You think the devil attacks your weaknesses. Nah, he attacks your growth. He attacks your enlightenment. He sends distractions, delays, detours, anything to keep you emotionally tied to the old you. He'll use guilt. You've changed. He'll use fear. What if it doesn't work? He'll use loneliness. No one understands you. But the truth, that's all proof that you're somewhere important. The resistance isn't random, it's a signal. You're breaking orbit. You want to know why most never make it to the other side. It's not the lack of talent. It's the addiction to being liked. It's the fear of walking alone. It's the need to explain themselves to people who were never meant to understand their journey. They slow down to keep everyone comfortable. They dim their light to blend in. And then they wonder why their soul feels heavy, why they're tired all the time. It's because carrying dead weight kills momentum. But once you realize your path is yours, the game changes. You stop explaining. You stop apologizing. You stop negotiating your worth with people who can't afford your vision. You don't need 10 people to clap. You need one voice, yours. You don't need external validation when your mission is internal. You don't need permission to become dangerous. You already are. And when you stop playing small, your energy changes. You walk different. You speak different. You attract.